What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is my 12th day. My sleep is still not what it should be. I'm a little bit surprised about that. Had been taking the MIT extracts for a while, and I think what's happened here is I just got used to just being so sedated because there's so much kratom in those things, that I was just sleeping all the way through the night, passing out. I might have gotten up one time to maybe use the bathroom, but other than that, nothing was waking me up. But I think that's because, when you're taking a high dose of an opiate or something that resembles an opiate like kratom, it's very sedative. Is that a word? Sedative. You become sedated, but the drug itself is sedative, maybe? It's a sedative. I don't know. I'm going to use it. It's very sedative, and it causes you to just kind of pass out, and you're hard to rouse and wake up and things like that. And I think now what I'm experiencing mostly is, I'm taking anywhere from 9, 10, 11 grams of kratom powder now. There's not nearly as much of the alkaloid in it, so it's not nearly as sedative as is the MIT. So I think that's all it is. I'm sleeping more like kind of like a normal person now. If my wife rolls over in the bed beside me, I kind of hear and feel her, so I wake up. My dogs sleep in the room with me, and we have hardwood floors. One of the dogs get up and shakes throughout the night, and I hear their claws like clicking on the floor. That'll wake me up. If I have to urinate, my bladder will wake me up. So now I'm just not as sedated throughout the night, so I'm starting to wake up easier. But if any of you have listened to my previous videos, you know that I'm a pro in terms of opiates and opiate withdrawal. I've been through withdrawal in terms of tapers. I've been through withdrawals cold turkey, and I'm talking about pretty serious withdrawals, not just from kratom, but from things like Percocets, strong Percocets, taking a high dosage of those each day for an extended period of time, and then coming off of those, Vicodins, and now kratom. This is my second taper and or withdrawal from kratom. So I've got some experience, and I know what it feels like to be experiencing withdrawals, and I am at night experiencing some of the chest discomfort. I don't know if any of you know this, but I hear people, when it comes to withdrawals, talk a lot about restless leg syndrome, and how bad restless legs are and stuff like that. Restless legs are bad, but if you've ever been through any serious withdrawal, you understand that you have something very similar to that manifests in the core of your body, like in the chest. And it's funny because I don't hear people talk about this that much. It's always restless legs, restless legs, restless legs. But if you've ever withdrawn, especially cold turkey, from a major opiate, that restless legs is not just in your legs. It's everywhere, and it's in your chest, in your heart, and you just have this like general like discomfort in your chest, and it also, much like restless legs, kind of makes you feel like you just have to move and reposition and like kind of tense up and tense your muscles up, and it's that whole consistent hypertrophy thing where your just muscles have to tense up. And obviously I'm still taking some kratom, so I'm not in like full-on withdrawals of these, but I am cutting down. I've been cutting down about a gram and a half, probably every 3 or 4 days. I've been kind of cutting it down a little bit, and I've been a little bit more aggressive than I originally intended. I originally was just going to do, cut it down once every week or whatever, and that's just how I live my life. I'm an all or nothing type dude, and I've made it, a little more of an aggressive approach than I originally decided to, just because I don't want this thing to take 12 full weeks. I want to go ahead and get it out of my system and get to the point where I'm at ground zero, and I can sleep fine, I can operate fine without the kratom at all. And then at that point, I may go back to taking it casually and taking some maybe in the evenings or on the weekends or whatever. But I'm trying to get myself back from where I was with these MITs, and I made a mistake in starting to take the extracts, and I think I didn't realize how strong those things were when I first was introduced to them. And then, you know, much like these things happen, by the time I was into it and I got into it, I was locked in, and I was already at the point where I was physically dependent, and I was, you know, experiencing some pretty major withdrawals and discomfort with coming off of them. When I was taking just the Kratom powder, you know, I was never taking any more than probably 10 to 13 grams a day. I was not like a really heavy user of it. And I remember a couple of times quitting taking the Kratom powder before I ever even discovered the Kratom extracts. And it wasn't that bad, to be honest with you. I mean, there was some discomfort, and there was a couple of nights where I'm not sleeping that well, a little bit of discomfort in the chest, but pretty much, you know, 3 to 4 days, it's kind of out of your system and you're back to normal, if you're not taking any more than what I was taking. But the extracts took me to that next level where it felt like I mean, it was not dissimilar. I would say it wasn't as intense, but it was not dissimilar to the cold turkey experiences I had with like Vicodin or Percocet. Just not quite the same level, especially with the daytimes. You know, it wasn't quite as bad with like the depression and the, you know, it didn't mess my stomach up that bad. I remember maybe having a couple of loose bowels coming off of the Kratom pills, but you know, the extracts are just kind of on another level there, and it's because of the amount of Kratom in it. Magnesium. I finally got the magnesium last night. I tried the magnesium last night. I feel about the magnesium kind of like I feel about chamomile tea, melatonin, these other relaxants. It does help relax you. It does give you kind of a wave of like comfort and calm, which is what the magnesium is called. If you're coming off of some sort of opiate and you want to try it, it's called Calm. And again, one of those things where if you're a normal person not coming off of some sort of opiate and having withdrawals, Calm probably would work great for you, and you will probably fall asleep, and you'll sleep like a baby all through the night, and you'll get up the next morning and say, wow, that magnesium really helps. But if you're going through some sort of opiate withdrawal, at least for me, let me know in the comments if your experience has been different, but at least for me, I mean, you know, it kind of helped me drift off there when I first laid down, but I also was just a few hours away from taking my last dose of Kratom. For me, it's been the same thing, you know, whether it's the melatonin, whether it's the chamomile tea, whether it's the magnesium, you know, it all probably kind of plays its part in helping me drift off. But as soon as 2, 3 o'clock in the morning rolls around and that last dose of Kratom that I took is starting to taper itself out of my system, you know, I'm up, man. I'm up. And the tea and the at that point, the tea and the magnesium and these other things that you could take, melatonin, just doesn't really help. But those items do not stave off opiate withdrawals. They don't stop opiate withdrawals. The hope is that if your withdrawals aren't that bad, then they'll just kind of help you overcome them to the point where you can just drift off to sleep and sleep through them. But if your withdrawals, if you've been taking a large amount of opiates, if you've been taking enough each day, like extracts or Percocets or Vicodin, you've been doing that for every day for a long time, pretty high dosages, I'm sorry, that melatonin, chamomile tea, magnesium, stuff like that may not help you that much. And I've been saying this all along, there just is no magic pill. The only magic pill is to take more of that which you are withdrawing from, which means you either take more Kratom or you take more Percocet or you take more Vicodin, and that kind of defeats the purpose now, doesn't it? Because you're trying to come off of those things because you know they're not good for you and good for your life. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And also, I want to say this. I started recording this video a few minutes ago, and I had read earlier this morning that if you take a large dosage of magnesium, that it can kind of upset your stomach and cause you to have loose bowels. I never have loose bowels, but I got about 3. I took probably 2.5 teaspoons of the magnesium earlier this morning, and I was like, oh, I got an iron stomach, I'm good. No, not me. I took 2 or 3 teaspoons of that several hours ago, and I sat down to do my video just a few minutes ago, and about 5 minutes into that video, I was like, I literally had to stop the video. And I know this is kind of going off the rails, but I had a loose bowel. I never have loose bowels. That was definitely the magnesium that did that to me, because I never have loose bowels. And it's not due to coming off the Kratom, because I'm still taking Kratom. I mean, you know, I'm coming down a little bit, but I know how my body reacts to cutting down by a gram and a half. Is when I'm tapering like this, I don't usually experience any issues with bowels. I did today, and I know that was because of the magnesium. So if you take the magnesium and you're trying it to kind of help, you know, dampen your withdrawals a little bit, just make sure that you don't take too much of it, man, because it will jack your stomach up. And I'm living proof of that. So anyway, I've been telling some drug addict stories, what I like to call stories of a drug addict. Diaries of a drug addict. I don't know. I still don't know what I'm going to call this channel. I literally do not know. I've not made all these videos public yet. I will at some point. But what I've been doing is just kind of talking it out, just like NA, AA, where you get in a room and you divulge all your dirty secrets to other people who have been through similar things that you have. That's what I'm doing here. And I'm hoping that it helps someone out there. There's a lot of opiate addicts out there, people who have gotten addicted to opiates. And during that addiction, you undoubtedly have done some things, said some things, thought some things that you're ashamed of, and that, you know, are not indicative of the type of person that you really are, and are not indicative of the heart that you have beating inside your chest. Because I, and anyone who knows me personally, can tell you I'm a good dude. I treat people with respect. You know, people tend to think highly of me. I don't mistreat anyone. I'm just a good person. I consider myself to be a good person. But when I was in active drug addiction, I was not a very good person. And it wasn't because my morality had left me, or it wasn't because I was, you know, I was void of morals. It was because I was in an active drug addiction. And when you're an active drug addict, morality goes out the window, and you'll do just about anything to get more of that drugs. And that includes lie, cheating, stealing, whatever it takes. And I did some of that. And so I'm going to kind of tell another story that is kind of related to that. So just like many other drug addicts, when I was young, there were some red flags, and I'm sure my parents probably saw these red flags. They loved me through it and in spite of it. But I have a 16-year-old son now, and this story I'm about to tell you took place when I was roughly about a 15-year-old boy. So I was right around the same age, even a little bit younger than what my son is now, who's 16. And if my son did something like what I'm about to tell you, I would definitely be concerned about my son and his future and the path that he was going down. So when I was young, you know, my parents I've talked about my parents had a couple of different medications, a couple of them opiates. My parents used to take Klonopin for like restless leg syndrome at night, stuff like that. This is not because they had an addiction to opiates or withdrawals or anything like that. It's just, they just had these prescriptions as, you know, as adults. Somehow I discovered that Klonopin gets you freaking high. Now, at this point in my life, I had only done things like drink alcohol. I had not, this is before I had ever smoked weed. I had never done anything like that. I was only a 15-year-old kid. I had my permit. I didn't even have my driver's license yet. I had my permit. So one weekend night, I had I stole, let me just say it, I stole a couple of my mother's Klonopin. And again, I'm a 15-year-old kid. I do not have a tolerance for this specific medication. And I took like literally maybe 2 of them, 3 of them, you know. And Klonopin is an intense muscle relaxer. and it can inebriate you. It can make it to where you have trouble with your coordination, your physical coordination, stuff like that. To make a long story short, I should not have been driving after taking 2 or 3 Klonopin as a 15-year-old kid who didn't even have a tolerance for these pills. So we were going to a local, a nearby city one night. We were, as a family, I can't remember if my brother was with me. I think it was just me and my mom and dad. And we were going to Rocky Mount to go to the mall there. We might have been going out to eat, something like that. I don't recall. But I had my permit. And, when you have your permit, most times when you go somewhere, your parents let you drive. They want you to get that experience, right? And so they were letting me drive. My dumbass had taken 2 Klonopin before we left the house. So when I say we got maybe a mile and a half from the house before my dad and mom were just like, whoa, what are you doing? Pull over. They didn't know what was wrong with me. Literally, I couldn't keep the car on the road, guys. I'm not proud of this at all. This is something that happened to me 31 years ago. I'm a 46-year-old man now. And I'm not proud of this, obviously. But I'm just telling the story so that you'll understand that we all have our history with it, and we all had our red flags when we were growing up that was probably indicative of the fact that we would become a drug addict. And I was no different. So we got about a mile and a half away from the house, and probably after about the 3rd or 4th time that I literally had ran off of the road and had to pull the car back on the road, my father, I guess it was my father, I think he was maybe in the passenger seat, told me to pull over, had me pull over, and he started driving, and he drove. And it's funny because if you've ever taken a medication like this, it is very much, if you take too much of it, the experience is very much like being almost blackout drunk. Very similar. You've had one of those nights where you drank so much that your memory is kind of like scattered. Like you remember bits and pieces of the night. You don't remember it in a consecutive chronological event or order. It's just kind of like, I remember a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I was here and then I was there, and I had a brief memory of this moment, and it's that sort of thing. And I remember, surprisingly enough, in spite of my parents probably knowing at that point that they did find out later that I had taken the pills. I at some point told them about it and admitted that to them. But let me get through to the story, because I don't want this video to go on for too long. I'm at 18 minutes already. I'm trying to keep it under 25. So we end up going to the mall anyway, in spite of the fact that my parents knew or probably assumed that their 15-year-old kid was high on something. We maintained our plans that night. We went to the mall, whatever. And I had a couple of times stolen things, specifically clothing. And this is the funny thing about this is, when you're a drug addict and the red flags in the behavior a lot of times comes before you ever even try the drugs. And if you've ever been to any sort of therapy or NA or AA, you know this. There were red flags, there were signs before you ever even ingested a drug. And one of those was that I used to steal some things. Did I have to steal some things? I did not have to steal some things. Both of my parents were teachers. Both of my parents, made a professional income. My mom always bought me nice clothes. In fact, I won my senior superlative for the best dressed person in my high school. So I always had nice clothes, and people always complimented me on my clothes. So I didn't need to steal clothes. Let me just be straight outright about that. This was not necessary. It's something I was doing because it gave me like a little high, like a little bit of piece of excitement. And I had stolen a couple of times. Well, we go to the mall, and I am extremely high on Klonopin, have taken 2, maybe 3 Klonopin, and I have no idea on God's green earth how I was able to make it out of that mall without an employee, security, somebody seeing me taking this clothes. Because what I was doing was taking the clothes, going into the dressing room, putting the clothes I wanted up underneath the clothes that I was currently wearing, and then I walked out of the the mall like that. Well, and listen, I was not being discreet about it. If I remember correctly, I had stolen and had on my person, up under my regular clothes, had probably a couple of shirts, couple of pairs of pants. Like I was not being discreet. I'm still to this day shocked that I actually made it out of the store. So at some point between the time I get back in the car, I don't know if it's because they just could tell I wasn't acting right, or am I just, I'm high as shit on Klonopins, and their parents, my parents know they're 15-year-olds, so they knew something was off. And I remember vaguely the conversation coming up on the way home, and me at some point admitting to them that I had taken some of Mom's Klonopin. And also at this time, I think they had seen me and noticed that, like, why are your clothes so thick? They somehow noticed that I had stolen a bunch of clothes. And I have no idea what the conversation was like between them on the way home. It was a 30-minute drive home, because I just don't hardly remember any of it because I was just so out of my brain. And this is something I would like to go back at some point and talk to my parents about this and ask them, like, what did you actually do? Because I think what they did was they got home, they made me take the clothes off, they made me give them the clothes that I had stolen, and I believe what they did was they took these clothes back to the store that I had stolen the clothes from at the mall, and apparently probably pleaded with, on my behalf, probably pleaded with, the manager, owner, whoever they talked to, the employees there, saying my son, he had taken some drugs, he was high, he was out of his mind, he took these he took these clothes, and they were hoping that in good faith of them bringing them back. They still had tags on them. I hadn't worn any of them, because I was caught. Before I even got home, I was caught. And they apparently took these clothes back, and in good faith, apparently, the store decided not to press charges. So I dodged a freaking bullet, and I was not prosecuted for the fact that I stole these. I never had to go to court. Obviously, I was a minor. I mean, they wouldn't have sent me to jail anyway. It would have been a misdemeanor. It's probably $150 total of, clothes that I stole. So it wasn't like, they were going to throw me into the jail for it, but I should have had to go to court or gotten a misdemeanor charge, had to do community service. I should have had to do all this stuff. And I didn't, because my parents went to bat for me on that. And man, I think back sometimes on some of the things that I've done, and it is just mind-blowing to me. That's pretty much the story. That's pretty much where it ends. I'm sure after that, they probably grounded me. I probably wasn't able to go anywhere for a few weeks or just whatever. My parents were really good, well-intending people. They were a little bit bad about being lax on myself and my brother. So in other words, when we did something wrong, they would have this intention of punishing us and grounding us for 2 weeks for something really bad that we did. And then we would stay grounded for about a week, and then they would feel bad for us because we were moping around the house, and then they would lift our punishment and allow us to start going places again. But, I can't be mad at them. I mean, we put them through so much. My brother put them through some as well. But I'm only going to share my stories. I'm not going to share what my older brother put them through. There's plenty to go around from what I put them through. But anyway, if you've gone through some crazy, dumbass stories of some dumbass things that you've done as a result of being a drug addict, don't feel bad. You're not alone. I'm right there with you. leave a comment. I would love, I'm gonna do a live stream one day, and I want to hear some of your stories. I'm only laughing about it because I survived it. It was a really long time ago. I have a great relationship with my parents now. I love them. They love me and my wife and my son, and we have a really good cohesive relationship now. So I'm past all of that. But it is embarrassing. It does help to talk about it, and it helps to talk about it. It helps to talk about it, guys. You know, talk about it. Tell me a story in the comment. I'll go live one day, and you guys can tell me all about your story, and I'll address them on the live stream. It'd be fun. We can have a online AA. Let's do it, man. It helps to talk about it, and it helps kind of get rid of the guilt and shame that you feel, and that's important. You have to de-burden yourself of that. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Like the video. Please subscribe to the video so that I know people are out there listening, and leave a comment below. All right, guys, I'm out, and I will see you tomorrow for another story.